The National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence has new recommendations for applying the technology to defense. The commission says the most compelling reason to accelerate AI is that machine analysis is more likely to anticipate the next attack. Elaine McCusker is a resident fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. She's former acting Undersecretary of Defense comptroller. She's writing about artificial intelligence in C4ISRnet. Thanks for joining me, Elaine. What were some of the commission's recommendations for AI applications in defense?
So the commission's report actually covers a lot of ground. It's almost 800-page report. But I've got basically three takeaways. First, AI will be in everything. The commission notes that AI will be incorporated into virtually all future technology. Or more simply, they say it will reorganize the world. So it's easy to recognize the national security threats and opportunities embedded in this conclusion. Second, we need to treat data security as national security. The report notes that the entire innovation base supporting our economy and security will leverage AI. This is behind the Commission's very broad strategy that recommends the reorganization of the government. Third, the Department of Defense is not set up for success in resourcing AI. The Commission says that, quote, unless the requirements, budgeting, and acquisition processes are aligned to permit faster and more targeted execution, the U.S. will fail to stay ahead of potential adversaries. This blunt conclusion demands attention and emphasizes the urgency of updating the way we do the department's budget and the way it's funded.
I think that third piece sounds like quite a heavy lift for DoD. What do you think the DoD needs to do to start to accommodate these AI capabilities, to start to adapt itself?
So in order to take advantage of the possibilities offered by AI, the department needs to do quite a number of things, including mature the technology itself and the digital infrastructure to enable it, solve manufacturing challenges related to microchip production, learn to integrate AI into systems and processes, including intelligence, develop policy direction related to what choices to delegate to intelligent machines, in what circumstances, and for what reasons, shape and train the workforce, and adjust how we work with universities, the private sector, allies, and partners. And my favorite, modernize the way we buy stuff, which is almost important as how much we spend. This last one is central. DoD and Congress need to work together on speed, flexibility, and responsiveness in budget and buying. We have to break through political logjams related to budget agreements and annual appropriations. I don't think China has to deal with continuing resolutions. We have to compete in time. For endeavors like AI, we need to be able to move quickly, try things, determine what works, and what does not work, and try again. To do this, we need to modernize how we resource DoD. The problem statement is pretty straightforward, and we can see evidence of it all over the place. The Department of Defense resourcing structures, or their appropriations accounts, date back to the 1942 Appropriations Act. They're not responsive to modern joint program planning and execution, and they don't provide the necessary cost visibility for management and oversight. In some ways, DoD is currently operating in the worst of worlds, where it follows a slow, inflexible planning, programming, budget, and execution process. And it also produces this avalanche of information to explain and justify the budget to Congress. And yet Congress consistently complains that there's not enough transparency for it to do its oversight. So now is the time for Congress and DoD to work together to fix this.
As you note, clearly you know a lot about the budgeting process. This is not something that DoD can just unilaterally fix. What's your sense of Congress understanding perhaps the issues here and maybe wanting to make some changes?
I mean, I think they're going to be motivated. If you look at just the recent National Defense Authorization Act, I think there's something like 81 times in that bill where they mention how unsatisfied they are with the level of budget justification documents or detailed acquisition plans or any number of things that they actually really need to do their oversight job. And so I think they're going to be open to this, but I think it has to be a partnership because you have to have sort of some element of trust in order to do new things. And the kinds of things that I think the department and Congress should work together on are, maybe trading off some flexibility in the budget and a new way of doing the budget for real-time information. And I think the department's getting to a point, based on the work on the audit and some other things they're doing on data analytics, where they might be able to provide that.
We've seen DoD make some changes to show that they understand that maybe buying software or other technology is different than buying hardware, buying airplanes or tanks. Do you think that they're going to see some benefits there in connection with artificial intelligence? Will that help the way that they're trying to buy or budget for AI?
I think it absolutely will. I mean, AI really requires that iterative approach I discussed earlier. And during the last request from DoD to Congress, they asked for this pilot program on like 9 software programs that would essentially kind of not be stuck with a color of money. So you wouldn't have to just march from RDT research to procurement to sustainment. You would be able to kind of go back and forth, which is how these things develop. And Congress approved this. And so I think that pilot is a really great start in looking at a different way to do these things. And it's going to be really important that the department is able to demonstrate that it can provide visibility while doing that. And honestly, some of that stuff in the original pilot was AI related.
It sounds like you think these pilots could be pretty important in terms of if they're successful, that will maybe suggest we can successfully do more of this. Do you think that's fair?
I do. And I think, as much as I would like to see some like rapid, drastic changes, I think we have to do 2 things in parallel. We need to run the pilot programs, and then we need to do also a deeper dive into some of the root causes of what is stopping us from moving quickly and figure out what we need to do about it. And I think we need to stay away from sort of narrow either or choices. But this is going to require some cultural changes as well.
You mentioned that in your piece. The cultural change in some ways feels pretty daunting. Do you think DoD is starting to take that on? What are the challenges there?
I mean, I think it's one of those situations where, you have a bias towards doing things the way you've always done them, and kind of an aversion that's built into the system to risk in planning, programming, budgeting, and acquisition. And there's inflexibility and time lags inherent in each one of these processes. I mean, the resourcing is not set up for fast, iterative approaches. And so we need to help our workforce so that they have the right skill sets. And we also need to redefine what is failure and what is success to encourage them to take that kind of risk.
Thank you very much, Elaine.
Thank you.